brain. So this tough layer that you guys see is your dura mater. Okay? And couple of parts that you can see right away. There's your cerebellum. Then underneath, right there, underneath the cerebellum is your pons, and then that is your medulla oblongata. Okay?
Oh my god, this is so
Alright?
There's no whole ones.
And then these where the eyes were. Okay? So each thing that comes out of here is your optic nerve. The optic nerve crosses, see right there, that's where it crossed. That's the optic chiasm, stone right here. So it crosses the optic chiasm. And then down from the optic chiasm on, then it's called the optic tract. Okay? So past this will be the optic tract once it crosses over. Okay? Alright. Now, see this spider web-like structure that you guys can notice? You guys see that? That is your what membrane? Arachnoid membrane. Okay? Alright. And a few more structures that you can see pretty easily. Underneath the dura, this big bump that you guys see right here, that is your pituitary gland. And it's very easy to identify because it's directly underneath your optic chiasm. Okay? And this is your olfactory bulb. So if this was a sheep right there, its nose would be right there. Okay? Alright, now let's look at the lobes. So we haven't divided it into half yet. These would be your frontal lobes. This would be your parietal lobes. This would be your temporal lobes. And this would be your occipital lobes. Okay? Now, underneath some of the structures that you guys can actually see, underneath the cerebellum, you see that depression? That's the fourth ventricle. You guys see that? Somebody told you how many ventricles in the brain we have? 4. Yeah, right. Right on. Okay. So, now let's look at one that has the dura mater out. Okay. Now we peeled off the dura mater. So this fissure, oh, by the way, all these bumps are your gyrus, and plural they're called gyri, and all these grooves are called your sulci. When the sulci is really deep, then we call it a fissure, which is the longitudinal fissure that divides the left and right hemispheres. Okay? Now, part of the dura mater dips in, and you can see a little portion of it right there. That is your falx cerebri. A little portion of it, the dura mater that goes in, that's your falx cerebri. Okay, and you can see the frontal lobes, the parietal lobes, the temporal lobes, and the occipital lobes. Your cerebellum, your fourth ventricle, and your, that's the pons region, and there's your medulla oblongata, and your cerebellum. Now, well, obviously the optic chiasma is gone here, but you can see the pituitary gland still covered by your dura mater. There's the pons, there's the medulla oblongata. Okay. Now, here is your olfactory bulb. So, the three nerves that you should be able to identify on the brain are your olfactory bulb, your optic nerves, and this massive nerve that comes out is your trigeminal nerve. Okay? So, at least those three you should be able to identify. The rest you should know on the model.
Come on, buddy.
Alright. Now let's look at, okay, a couple more stuff. I'll come back to this. Now let's look at the sagittal section of the brain. Depending on which one, it's going to look slightly different. Okay. Now when you look at the sagittal section of the brain, once again these are your cerebral lobes. This region is your diencephalon, pons, medulla oblongata. Okay. Now in here, this structure is your corpus callosum. That is your fornix. There's the thalamus, and the center of it is the intermediate mass of the thalamus. Okay? Now, see this right here? is your optic chiasma. See how different that looks. Okay. Now, because this is the thalamus, this region is the epithalamus, and that is your pineal gland. Okay. Now, here's the third ventricle, the roof of it, so that's the choroid plexus. So when you actually took this area off, you would have had the membrane called the septum pellucidum that covers this area. Now, you're not going to be able to see the pineal gland in every one. Actually, you can see it on this one. See right here? That's the pineal gland. There's the choroid plexus, the animated mass of the thalamus, fornix, and corpus callosum. Okay? Now, another structure, let's see here. Oh, I might as well finish off the sagittal section. Now, what is this structure I told you guys about? It looks like a tree. Arbor something. Arbor vitae, that's all your white matter. You can see that pretty clearly in all of your sagittal sections here. So, underneath that is your fourth ventricle. You guys see that? And this structure here that communicates the third ventricle, the fourth ventricle, is going to be a cerebral aqueduct. That's the channel or the canal I was telling you guys about. Now, what else you will see here? Now, in the midbrain region, four structures that you should be able to see. Do you guys see 4 bumps?
Yeah.
Those are the corpora quadrigemina. The ones on the top are your superior colliculus. The ones at the bottom are your inferior colliculus. Okay? Now, the structure that's underneath it that holds the brain, that's going to be a cerebral peduncles. The structure that's underneath those. I just almost splashed a little bit. That's going to be a cerebral peduncles. Now, look at the sagittal section of it. See? That's the superior, that's the inferior colliculus. You guys see that? Superior and inferior. So make sure you guys look at it on all sections. And then also be able to identify the fourth ventricle underneath it and the cerebral aqueduct. Okay? And the pons and medulla oblongata along with the optic chiasma. Let me see it. Did I cover everything? Oh, optic tract. I forgot to show you the optic tract. So I remember I told you guys once the optic chiasma crosses, after that is the optic tract. Okay? Okay. So, thalamus, epithalamus, hypothalamus, optic chiasma, and then posterior to that, that's the mammillary body. So once again, okay, you can see the mammillary body on this right there. It's nice and circular. Okay. And I think that's about it.
Good.